Ever wonder how a simple product suddenly shows up all over the world? It starts as a local favorite, and next thing you know, it's a global brand. Well, there's a story behind that, a life cycle. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the strategic map companies use to take that incredible journey. Let's dive in.
So here's our plan. First, we're going to look at the life of a product. Then, we'll talk about the big problem that basically forces it to pack its bags and move out. After that, we'll get into the main event, the hypothesis for going global. Then we'll lay out a map of all the strategic choices. And finally, we'll see how a real-world giant puts it all into practice.
All right, first up, the life of a product. And it's a lot like a person's life. A product is born, it grows up, it hits its prime, and then eventually it fades away. Now, this isn't just some cute metaphor. It's a really fundamental idea in business that drives almost every big decision a company makes.
And of course, there's a formal name for it, the product life cycle. It's these 4 key stages, introduction, growth, maturity, and decline, that act like a guide, telling a company what it should be doing at any given point in time. But, 4 stages can be a lot to juggle. So to make things a bit simpler, we can actually group them into 2 big phases. This slide lays it out perfectly. You've got the early days, the introduction and growth phase, and then you have the later years, the maturity and decline phase. Let's break down what really changes between the two.
So in that early phase, everything's kind of new and chaotic. The product isn't standardized yet. You're not totally sure what the right price is, and customers aren't super sensitive to price changes. But then, as you move into that later phase, things really shift. The product becomes standardized, everything gets more predictable, and companies start fighting over brand and price, because now customers are very sensitive to price. And it's this big change from being a unique new thing to a standardized commodity that sets up our next huge challenge.
So let's talk about how that very success can turn into a major headache. The same standardization that helps a company get big and efficient, well, it also creates this massive problem for its future. We call it the standardization problem. In the beginning, life is good. You've got this hot new product, and just like this chart shows, you are raking in the cash. Why? Because there's no competition. You are the only game in town, and it feels great. But you know how it goes. It's just a fundamental law of business. If you're making a ton of money, other people are going to notice. Success is like a giant magnet for competitors. And this is where that awesome standardization becomes a double-edged sword. As you perfect your product and make it easier to produce, you're basically creating a perfect blueprint for others to copy you. Pretty soon, the market is flooded with competitors, prices drop, and those amazing profits you had, they start to disappear. Which leads every successful company to the same terrifying question. Your home turf is crowded, profits are shrinking. What do you do? Where do you possibly go from here? And that brings us to the very heart of our explainer today, the answer. It's a really powerful idea called the product cycle hypothesis, or PCH for short. And it's basically the ultimate guide for taking your product global. Now, the PCH isn't just some vague concept. It's a super practical framework. Think of it like a GPS for international expansion. It tells you exactly when to go, which countries to aim for first, which products to lead with, and what kind of strategies to use when you get there. It is the complete playbook. And the playbook itself is all about being smart and cautious. Step 1. You only expand when things at home are getting tough. Step 2. You don't just jump into the deep end. You start with countries that are a lot like your own, similar culture, similar economy. Step 3. You go in with your tried and true products, the ones you know work. And finally, step 4. You start small, with low-risk moves like exporting, before you even think about making huge investments.
And that really gets to the core philosophy here. The PCH is all about smart, calculated moves. It's a strategy designed to reduce risk and, most importantly, to prioritize learning as you go. The big idea is that you can't just copy and paste what worked at home. You have to learn and adapt.
Okay, so you've made the call. You're going abroad. Now for the next big question. How are you actually going to operate? Well, let's pull out a strategic map to help us figure that out. It's called the Dispersion Coordination Framework. This matrix looks a little complicated, but it's actually a super clear way to see the 4 main strategies. Just think about it this way. The vertical axis is about how much control headquarters has. That's coordination. And the horizontal axis is about how spread out your operations are around the world. That's dispersion. Each of these 4 boxes represents a totally different way of doing business. Let's walk through them.
So in the top right, we've got the global exporter. This is the classic approach. You make everything in one place, so low dispersion, and you control everything tightly from headquarters, high coordination. Just think of a company making all its stuff at home and just shipping it out to the rest of the world.
Now, diagonally opposite that is the multi-domestic strategy. This is the total opposite. Your operations are spread out all over the place, high dispersion, and the local managers in each country get to call the shots, low coordination. The whole point here is to tailor everything, your product, your marketing, to perfectly fit each individual local market.
Now for the trickiest one of all, the transnational strategy. This is really the best of both worlds approach. You're trying to be spread out everywhere and have tight coordination from the center. The goal is to be super efficient on a global scale while also being able to adapt to local needs. It's incredibly powerful, but man, it is not easy to pull off. And our last box here is decentralized marketing. This is kind of a hybrid model. You keep all your manufacturing in one place to save money. That's low dispersion. But you let your local teams handle the marketing however they see fit. That's low coordination. It's a neat way to balance cost savings with local flavor.
All right, enough with the theory. It's great, but let's see what this looks like out in the real world. Let's take a look at a company that basically wrote the book on international expansion.
I mean, who else but McDonald's, right? They are the textbook example. They created this absolute blockbuster of a model in the US and then followed a very careful, systematic plan to go global. They're often held up as a perfect example of a transnational company. They keep their brand and their core products consistent everywhere, but they are also absolute masters at tweaking their menu and their operations for local tastes around the world.
So, let's bring it all home. What are the big takeaways here? First, the whole product life cycle is what creates the need to expand in the first place. Second, the product cycle hypothesis, or PCH, gives you a safe, low-risk roadmap for that journey. Third, that dispersion coordination matrix is your map for choosing the right strategy. And finally, and maybe most importantly, real success isn't just about showing up in a new country. It's about learning and adapting every single step of the way. So we've seen the whole journey, from a local hit to a global player, all guided by a clear, strategic map. So the question I want to leave you with is this. If you were the one in charge, with this map in your hand, which route would you take?